1987, you become the captain of West Coast, though, first ever captain. I mean, I know that's obviously a leadership position, but we're just spoken a lot about individual accolades like the Brownlow Medal and different things, but captaincy, although individual, is like very much a team thing.
Look, and it was you might have been the one that was chosen as captain, but you had players that coming back from Melbourne, Scurry, that played either at Richmond in John O'Neill. Steve Malax had an experience at Hawthorn, played state footy. Phil Narkle at St Kilda, fantastic player. Jeff Miles, having played in Melbourne. Dean Turner, who was a cracking team player, and could play centre, could nullify, could play wing, play half forward. So you have a catalyst of more senior players with a bit of AFL experience. And then the grouping of the other, 29 odd out of the 35 that from experience to, a Chris Lewis or a Chris Mainwaring or Andrew McNish who were just babies.
What's the early days like at the club?
Bloody exciting.
Was it?
Oh, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And that's where, can I say, no one's fault at North Melbourne, but the fun had started to go out of things a bit because you're not playing well. No one else's fault, my fault. But I just thought, and the weather was starting to get pretty heavy. And I thought I just, going back to Perth for our family as well, to have our third child in Perth. And, Perth is where we wanted to come back to at some stage. So I only ever signed a 3-year deal with North to start with. So we're there nearly 10.
Yes.
So coming back, look, fortuitous. You're right. And I still owe East Perth a game, that's for sure. So from that pre-season.
What memories do you have of early days West Coast though? So facilities, like my memories of Victorian that doesn't know anything about it. The canary yellow sort of strip, like
thank you.
Yeah,
great.
I thought,
and the shorts were still tights going. With none of this. Eddie Betts, bordering on the new
shorts.
basketball type short, the flowing short where the jumper's tighter but the shorts are big.
Borderline circulation stoppers.
Well,
you used to wear, Ross.
This is a true story. My dad did say to me, he said, I know why you had three daughters, son. I said, why's that, Dad? He said, your freaking shorts were too tight. Oh, yeah, good on you, Dad. That's a Ron Barassi comment. Thank you. Anyway, still love him. So... Look, training facilities, mate, were random. Whilst we were playing home ground at Subi, we couldn't train on Subi. So you were training mainly at Mount Lawdy Teachers College, which was a good facility, but you really didn't have a change room. So Hank Glody and Billy Sutherland, head property man, Billy Sutherland. Yeah, you see it. So he had his van, so you'd get trained there or get a jumper. There were some toilets. So you'd turn up, and a lot of the blokes were either working or at uni. So you'd turn up, get changed in your car, Ron Alexander, the coach. You'd do a normal training session, so the ground was fine. It's just then you get in your car and drive home. It was quite nomadic. But in some ways, and I reckon a lot of the younger boys would agree with this. In fact, I've heard the late Chris Mainwaring say that it was one of the, whilst it seemed odd at the time, it was a great way to actually connect blokes and get them talking and saying, well, where do you live? Can I come and pick you up? Could you, carpool and those sorts of things. So in very small ways, it was a connector.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask about that because football clubs, East Perth, you speak about North Melbourne, like they've been going on for
eternity.
50 years, 60, 100 years, whatever they are. This is different though.
Yeah.
Like you blokes are just getting together.
2 weeks in.
Right. So I'd imagine there'd have to be a huge connection piece. Yes, football. Yes, game style.
Yeah.
Yes, coach. Yeah. But you're learning about each other. Where the other clubs, you go into North Melbourne, like they all know each other, and it's just roster to know each other. So
there's the routine. Yeah. Very much so. And even though everyone had played at Subiaco Oval, your home ground, it was still not as home groundy as you would feel playing on a Bassendean if you're Swan Districts or whatever it might be. So you're right, mate. And then not having your own locker. I mean, that happened once the games came, but it was different. It was unique. Training at Guildford Grammar, Guildford Grammar, particularly on the bottom ovals because they were towards the river, so they're quite swampy. So to try and sort of simulate playing on a Moorabbin or the grounds before they were all taken up because of the clay soil, as you know, mate. The cricket wickets in the middle, they were pretty soft.
Yeah.
McGilvray Oval, training there, a bit of pre-season. You know, you're close to the ocean and there was always a breeze. So it was difficult training for skills, but it also taught some of the blokes how to kick with a strong breeze or against the breeze. So there was a bit of a good thing with that. But it was, I think you'd have to say, of the boys that were there, the boys, in the first 2 or 3 years, it was still pretty exciting, mate.
Mm.
Because there was there was an expectation, but there's no history. So you were forming the expectation of how you played and performed and starting to build something.
So how much was there on performance? Like, do you remember your first win? Was it, well, you know, first year, are you playing to win?
Yeah,
like, I know you're playing to win. I know what sport's about. That's all I live for, and probably you as well. But given the circumstance, are you thinking, oh, we're a chance here, or was it like some of these clubs now?
Yeah,
they wouldn't.
I'm serious. That's a very good question, mate. Because my most vivid memory of pre-season was the last game before our very first fixtured game, which was against Richmond at Subi, was against Essendon, who had been, you know, a really strong team the preceding couple of years. And we actually played really well and beat them. I know it was a pre-season game, but it was 2 weeks prior to the first game in 87. So I thought, you know, these boys are going to be okay because some of them could play really well. And you could just sense that they weren't just filling a gap. And you also knew, Scully, that in a year or 2 or 3, there were a few list changes. There was strength in the waffle for another 1 or 2 once the rules were sort of modified and you can only choose from so many waffle clubs. Mm. So all those things started to, you know, it was exciting. Good crowd in the first game, which you never know how many you're going to expect. So who is this team? What sort of support are you going to get? State of Origin was always well attended on a Tuesday, but this was quite unique. So yes, performance, win-loss wasn't ever spoken about, but I thought after the Essendon pre-season game, running out to play Richmond in the very first game, I thought we'll be okay. That there's some credibility with how we can play, and I saw some good signs.
That was just a little teaser of our full episode. They're out Wednesdays on YouTube, and you can listen to them wherever you get your podcast. Go on, get out of here.